is a volunteer for the Richmond National Battlefield Park. He studied history at Randolph-Macon College at the University of Richmond. Board member of the Richmond Civil War Roundtable. I think you're the president now, right? President.
One more day. One more time. Yeah, one more day.
And he's a volunteer at the Virginia War Memorial, a speaker, presenter, and tour leader. He has a number of books, many of which are for sale right here. Fort Harrison and the Battle of Chaffin's Farm, nominated in the nonfiction category for a Library of Virginia Literary Award. He's written The Battle of Glendale, Robert E. Lee's Lost Opportunity, and Richmond Shall Not Be Given Up, which is a survey and a tour of the 7 Days campaign. And that was a finalist for the Army Historical Foundation Distinguished Writing Award. And I actually have read that book, and I think it should have won. And he also just completed a guidebook, which is also here, right, in Battle Capital, Civil War Richmond, with Bert Dunkerley, who has also spoken to us in the past.
You didn't tell me he'd been here.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yes. He has been here. Actually, he was a Zoom presentation.
Okay.
Zoom presentation on the Liberty Island, the explosion at
Brown Island Expedition.
Right, that's what it was. I'm having a lot of senior moments this year, sorry folks. And Doug is also working on a study on the Confederate High Command during the 7 days. So, he's a speaker, an author, a tour leader, and now a speaker in front of the Rappahannock Valley Civil War Roundtable, Doug Crenshaw.
He's going on, absolutely.
Thank you. I typically talk very loud. So if I'm too loud, let me know. If I'm not loud enough in the back, let me know, okay? I do want to say, I've been to a lot of places. This is the friendliest bunch of people I have ever run into. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Emerging Civil War, Chris Mikowski and those guys, but I have a sign-up sheet here for their newsletter. There's no obligation. Nobody's going to call you. They're just going to send you a copy of the newsletter. So I'm going to pass it around. If you're interested, put the information on here. If it's full, go around the back. I'll start here, and I'll pick it up when I'm done. Okay? Thank you. All right, so I'm going to talk about the 7 days. Don't have a lot of time to do it. So it's a very big topic. I know Mark took you on a tour. I bet it was great. Got Greg Mertz here. I'm almost intimidated, you know? But it's a very big topic. I'm trying to do it in the right amount of time. If you have questions, I'm definitely open to questions. Afterwards, if you want to come and talk to me after, that's fine too, okay? I like talking about it. All right, so I'm going to start the story end of May, 1862. Joseph Johnston and his army have retreated up the peninsula from Yorktown. I hope you can see that. They're up in here. Can you guys see that? Okay. All right. So he's pulled up the peninsula, and George McClellan has followed him with about 105,000 men, 300 guns roughly, a lot of them heavy siege guns. And Johnston's strategy is to get McClellan well away from his base of supply and attack him and drive him back, destroy him, whatever he can do to him. So on May 31st, he tries that in a place called Seven Pines. It's a good plan. It was extremely poorly executed, extremely poorly supervised. Confederates lost 5,000 men, including Johnston. Robert E. Lee was military advisor to President Davis, and they arrive on the scene at Seven Pines. They hear the fire going on in Richmond. They ride out. A lot of you probably know this story. But now Davis has a problem. The commander is down. Who's going to command the army? You see, McClellan's only a few miles away. If McClellan gets within 4 or 5 miles, he's almost in range for his heavy guns. And his plan is to use his heavy guns to drive the Confederates back. He doesn't really want to damage his army. All right? So anyway, Davis has a problem. So he goes to Gustavus Woodson Smith, who's Johnston's number 2, and he asks him what his plan is. He doesn't know. And he has a really bad habit of getting ill when he gets nervous. So he is not up to the job, clearly. So now Davis goes, who can run this army? I cannot take a chance here. I have a couple of choices. I have 2 full generals left available to take the field, Beauregard and Lee. Beauregard's out west, and he's no friend of Davis. That leaves Lee. Lee is his military advisor. So he puts Lee in charge. So now I want you to put yourself in Lee's place. Try to imagine this. The morning of June 1st, he starts heading out to his new army. He has never commanded a large army in the field. He doesn't know his commanders except for Jackson a little bit. He doesn't know the condition of the army. He doesn't know when McClellan's going to strike. So imagine that. You're the coach of the Super Bowl. Okay? You just got appointed coach of the Super Bowl. All right? And you're the underdog. Oh my God. I don't know any of these players. Right? Okay? That's where you're at. So he goes out, and a couple of days later, he calls his top commanders together. He wants to get a feeling of their pulse. And one says, why don't we attack around through White Oak Swamp area around the left flank of the Union? One says, why don't we retreat? And he starts citing all these reasons they should retreat. And Lee goes, stop. If you go to ciphering, we're already lost. Okay? So he's got to find a way to get McClellan away. The first thing he's going to do, he's going to start building entrenchments all around Richmond. Why would he do that? Hazard a guess? Right. So you can defend the city better, but you can also free up troops to attack. Lee has one particular mindset, which I think is very accurate. He realizes the South can't win a long war. He knows the North has more troops, potential troops, have more armament, they have more manufacturing capability. He doesn't think that France and England will come in on their side. So he thinks that he has got to strike hard and fast and make the North want to stop fighting. He doesn't believe they can drag this thing out. So he's got to do something to make McClellan go away or destroy McClellan. So he builds fortifications. He starts to work on the discipline of the army by sending troops into the city and getting the malingerers out. He brings up troops from the south. He sends, here it is, sorry. Sends Jeb Stuart on his famous ride to find out just what the situation is on the other side of the Chickahominy River. If you look, McClellan, Chickahominy River is along here. McClellan has 4 of his corps, about 80,000 men south of that. And he's got 1 corps, the 5th Corps, north of it. And it's north of it for 2 reasons. One is, let's see, make the railroad out. Along here is the York River Railroad, which is McClellan's main supply line. That's what he brings his food, ammunition up, and his heavy guns up. He's got 1 corps north of the river protecting it, but also he's got 1 corps up there because he's hoping that the 1st Corps will come down from Fredericksburg and join him as part of his army. The administration won't let them move because they're afraid of Jackson. Jackson's in the valley, quite often live with Jackson in the valley acting up, and they're scared that Jackson will make a move north. So they basically let 1 division go to Pennsylvania Reserve, the rest of them stay there, 30,000 men stay in Fredericksburg. So Lee sees that there's 1 corps north of the river, and Lee sees where that supply line is. He also finds out from Stuart that, look here, John Porter's 5th Corps is north of the river, and notice the flank is open. So he sees his opportunity. So what he's going to do is very confusing, I know, but work with me. I swear I didn't write this map. He's going to take Stonewall Jackson and come down out of the valley and to come down on the flank. You see Pole Green Church, the arrow that keeps going past it to Old Cold Harbor? That's Jackson. He'll come down the flank. A.P. Hill, D.H. Hill, and Longstreet will cross Chickahominy. D.H. Hill will join Jackson. A.P. Hill and Longstreet will threaten 5th Corps. He will encircle the 5th Corps. He will threaten the supply line, possibly destroy the 5th Corps, and force McClellan out of his fortifications Fort McClellan out of his fortifications. All right? So the plan is he gets these guys together. He gets D.H. Hill, A.P. Hill, Jackson, and Longstreet together at a place called the Dabbs House. Has anybody been to that museum? It's a great museum, okay? And it's got a nuclear bomb shelter in the basement. But it's a really nice museum. It's on 9 Mile Road in Richmond. If you go to 7 Days Again or Cold Harbor, go by and check it out. He brings them together. Now, Jackson has to ride down from the valley. He's got to ride back, so remember that. And they get together, and Lee tells them his general plan is that he wants A.P. Hill to cross over the Meadow Bridge, which is west of Mechanicsville. See if I can find a good map to show you can see. That might actually work. A.P. Hill's going to cross the Meadow Bridge when he hears that Jackson is down here. He's going to go through Mechanicsville. When he does that, D.H. Hill and Longstreet can cross the bridge at Mechanicsville. Jackson will go around the flank. D.H. Hill will join him. A.P. Hill and Longstreet will push against Porter's front. That's the plan. It's supposed to happen on the 26th of June. Now, bear in mind, Lee has only been in command since the 1st of June. On the 1st of June, the Army's in disarray. They lost 5,000 men, and the capital's in danger. By the 26th of June, he's taken the initiative. He never wants to give it up. This depends on some really good timing. You guys have never fought together before. Jackson has to come down from the valley. Everybody has to work together. Lee has a small staff. The communication's going to be a problem. So Jackson's going to come down the 26th, and he's not going to make it where he's supposed to be. He's going to stop at a place called Old Green Church, which is at the top of your screen. You can probably see that. He stops there. He doesn't know where he really is. His orders are not very clear. It's one problem we have in this whole campaign. Orders are not very clear. A.P. Hill, now imagine you're A.P. Hill. So A.P. Hill's waiting to hear from Jackson. A.P. Hill's going to kick the show off. A.P. Hill has just gotten command of his 1st Division. Right? The day goes on, he hears nothing. By 3 o'clock, he's getting very nervous because if he doesn't go, the whole thing could fall apart. And McClellan has 80,000 men facing 25,000 Confederates south of the river. Maybe McClellan will wake up and just drive through. So he makes a decision. Jackson must be out there, so he goes. And he is maligned for this a lot for doing it, but I'm not so sure he had much of a choice. Jackson should have been there. He hadn't heard from Jackson. He doesn't reach out to Jackson. Jackson doesn't reach out to him. Lee doesn't reach out to Jackson. There's a lack of communication. This is hard one to see. This is the battle. I got better on that. This one. All right, so A.P. Hill goes through Mechanicsville, and Lee sees him go through Mechanicsville. Lee's about 2-3 miles away up on a ridge. You can see the Yankees are retreating, and A.P. Hill's guys are coming through the town of Mechanicsville, a little village. So he sends Longstreet and D.H. Hill across, figuring that ball's in motion, right? A.P. Hill gets to Mechanicsville and keeps on going, and he runs smack into Fitzjohn Porter's defenses. He's across a swamp, a mill race, a swamp. He's up on a ridge. Some of his men are dug in. It's a great defensive position. And as they get there, under heavy fire, they really can't advance. He tries to attack on the left under Anderson. He makes no progress. Lee comes over. It doesn't stop him. I think he figures it's probably too late to stop him. While D.H. Hill's guys come over, President Davis and Lee tell one of his brigade commanders, Ripley, to attack the left, Union left. It's the very bottom. And his guys get slaughtered. So in the day, the Confederates gain nothing, lose about 1,500 men to about 300 Union troops. But it's a strategic victory. Because McClellan's got word that Jackson's out there. McClellan is convinced that Lee has between 150,000 and 200 men. And he must, because no madman would take all those guys across the river and leave my capital unprotected, right? So would do that, all right? So he's going to tell Porter to pull back that night. That's what it looked like. That's an artist's rendition of what Beaver Dam Creek looked like. And it's pretty accurate. My family actually lived there at the time, so it's back to a place called Bosun's Creek. Between Bosun's Creek and where Lee is, there's another place called Powhite Creek, if you will. And there's a mill there named Gaines Mill. On Lee's map, it shows that. It doesn't show Bosun's Creek. This is really important. Maps are really a problem. He's expecting Porter to line up there and defend that creek, because if you ever go there, you probably went there on the bus. There's some high ridges. I went there. So he's going to set AP Hill down what's now Cold Harbor Road, straight at the mill. Find out where they are. Longstreet's going to go down the River Road, a little less than a mile to his right, Support Hill. Jackson and D.H. Hill are going to go way around to the left, Old Cold Harbor, force Porter to stretch his men, and then AP Hill and Longstreet can smash Porter's men right into the waiting arms of D.H. Hill and Longstreet. Well, AP Hill rides down there, and he finds out the Yankees really aren't there. Or are they? Well, they're on this place. This is Bosun's Creek. This is the southeastern edge of the Union line. You see how high the hill is? There's 3 lines of infantry here, one down at the bottom, one halfway up, one near the top, and the artillery's at the top. This line goes for 2 miles. It kind of levels out later. It's not quite that high. It just stays pretty high. That's a pretty good defensive position. In addition to this, it's right on the river, and across the river, the Yankees have some heavy guns. So if the Confederates approach this end, they're going to have to face those guns as well. So it's a good defensive position. So AP Hill advances, and he finds nobody there. He keeps going. He runs slam into them here, and he attacks, and he attacks, and he attacks, and he attacks. And everybody gets on Hill for being impetuous. But Lee is there. He rides up. He doesn't stop him. He tells Longstreet to support him. Longstreet tries and says, we're not going to carry that position, just us. So where are Jackson and D.H. Hill? Well, D.H. Hill, as you can see up there, Old Cold Harbor Tavern is at the top. I don't know if you can make it out. Where D.H. Hill is where a lot of the Battle of Cold Harbor happened. He's up there. AP Hill's guys are attacking. I'm not going to get into all the tactical stuff there, okay? But where's Jackson? You all probably know this story. I don't know. Jackson gets lost. It's not really his fault. He tells a guide, a local guide, that he wants to go to Cold Harbor, right? Little does he know, there's 2 Cold Harbors on this road. There's New Cold Harbor, which is down right there. And there's Old Cold Harbor. He's supposed to be Old Cold Harbor. He doesn't know New Cold Harbor exists. Right? So he gets led down the wrong road, and he starts to hear firing, and he goes, this can't be right. I'm supposed to be on the end of this thing. So he has his guy take him all the way back and up to Cold Harbor. So this takes him some time. All right. Jackson's actually there around noon, and he's talking to D.H. Hill, but his troops are going to take a while to get there. Hill's guys are getting hammered, and finally they kind of peter out, and by that time, Jackson's guys start coming up. Ewell and others start coming up, and they start getting in. But nobody's carrying the day. So around 7 o'clock, and remember, there's no daylight savings time, so it's dark, 8:15. Okay? There's no daylight savings time. It's around 7 o'clock, and Lee's in kind of a desperate situation. Because almost his whole army is over here, and they're not winning. And McClellan still could attack Richmond. And he has got no way of getting back there easily. There's a place called Newbridge a few miles back. He's not going to be able to get his little army across fast. So if McClellan attacks, he's in trouble. So he orders everybody to attack. And some of the Hill's guys are kind of exhausted, but they all attack. This is Lee's largest attack of the war. Somewhere 35 to 50,000 men, depending on who you read, attack. So it's a lot larger than Pickett's charge. It's the largest attack of the war. They break through. The legend is that John Bell Hood's guys attacked that hill I showed you. He told his men not to fire, but to just charge with the bayonets. And when they did, the Yankees at the bottom of the hill stood up and ran. And when they stood up, the guys behind them couldn't fire, so they turned around. And when they stood up, the guys behind them couldn't fire, so they turned around. And before you know it, the Confederates were on the Yankee guns. They'd taken the place. On the left, D.H. Hill also broke through, and for the rest of his life, he would say that he was the first one to break through. But who knows, right? Doesn't really matter. So by nightfall, the Union Army has escaped. They've gotten across the river. Nightfall, the Confederates have the field, and all the Yankees are now south of the river. So now, if you're Lee, what are you going to do next? Where are the Yankees going to go? Are they going to attack Richmond? He doesn't think so. They would have done that by now. Are they going to retreat back down the peninsula and reform? Or are they going to go to the James River? He doesn't know. He sends Richard Ewell's infantry division and Jeb Stuart's cavalry to a place called Bottom's Bridge, which is well east of Richmond, maybe a dozen miles east of Richmond, and tells them to watch and let him know if anybody comes. And nothing happens. And by late in the day, he goes, okay, they're going for the river, which is a logical place to go because McClellan will have his ships there to protect him and supply him. But now, Lee has an opportunity that very few military commanders ever have. He has 100,000 men retreating right across his front on bad roads. 300 guns, 3,000 cows and mules, prisoners, whatever he's got. He's got tons of stuff to carry all the way across the front. And Lee has 5 roads he can hit them on, like the spokes of a wheel. 9 Mile Road, Williamsburg Road, Charles City Road, Darbytown Road, Newmarket Road. He can hit him with any of those. It probably destroyed McClellan. McClellan's almost defenseless. But he has a problem. Anybody want to guess what the problem is?
We got a case.
Sorry?
We got a case.
That's a problem. Where's his army? North of the river. And they had that bridge, a new bridge, and a bridge all the way back to Mechanicsville. So it's going to take time to get over there, right? So now it begins the downfall of John Magruder. Magruder and Eugene are south of the river. Eugene is told to take, and if you see his name, it's not Huger or Huger, it's actually Eugene. That's how they pronounce it in South Carolina. Okay? He was told to take his troops down to a place called Glendale. Down in this area right here. Okay? That's an intersection that the Union Army will have to go through. Magruder is supposed to strike ahead and slow down the Yankee retreat. Jackson's going to come across the river and hit him in reverse. Meanwhile, the other guys will be going across the bridges. So Eugene gives Magruder 2 brigades, and nothing happens, and nothing happens. So Lee rides up to Magruder and goes, General Magruder, what are you doing? Why aren't you attacking? General Lee, I'm outnumbered. There's at least 2 enemy corps over there. Well, there were 3. That's right. He was outnumbered. He had a division. There were 3 enemy corps over there. He had about 12,000 men. They probably had 30,000 or more. He said, it's okay. Joe Jackson's going to come in and hit him in the rear. And he goes, I sent a messenger to General Jackson. He said he had other important duty to perform. Lee goes, I don't know anything about that, but I'll get it straight. Meantime, Eugene calls for his 2 brigades back because Magruder wasn't using them. So Magruder attacks. It's a half-hearted attack. Sorry, trying to get back there. At a place called Savage Station. Just let that map happen, sorry. It's not a big attack, it's not a big battle, and today it's the intersection of 295 and 64. So if you're looking for it, you're riding over it. Okay, it's not preserved. There's also a big electricity farm, fields out there in the fields. There's really not much left of it. So now you wonder, what was Jackson's other important duty? This is a big question. Well, Lee had sent a message drafted by one of his aides named Chilton to Ewell and Stuart to tell them to keep an eye out for the Yankees coming down the peninsula, and that Jackson would keep his eye out on the Chickahominy. He gave a copy to Jackson. Jackson follows orders. Jackson's going to keep an eye on the Chickahominy. So he sits there. Lee finds out, sends somebody to talk to Jackson. Jackson goes, oh, we still got to build a bridge. So it's nightfall before he gets anywhere useful. 3:30 in the morning, he arrives at Savage Station. Now, Savage Station at this point is a burning depot. Got about 2,000 Yankee wounded there, mountains of supplies burning. It's a disaster area. And Jackson is there, and Lee rides up. And this is going to be the key moment of the campaign to me. Others may disagree. He gives Jackson his plan. He is going to send UG again down to Riddell's shop, which is currently is known as the Glendale intersection, to cut that intersection with his 9,000 or 10,000 men. He'll be supported by Longstreet and AP Hill with 19,000 more. 29,000 men to cut an intersection ought to be able to do it. Theophilus Holmes is brought up. He's not much more than useless, really. Okay? He comes up from Petersburg. He's told to go down what's now Route 5. Route 5 in Richmond, I don't know if you are now. It's Newmarket Road. He's supposed to go down there and get down and harass the Yankee retreat, because the Yankees are going to come down, they're going to turn at Glendale, and they're going to cross Malvern Hill, they're going to go down to the river and head to their new base. And he's supposed to hit them while they're doing that, and maybe seize Malvern Hill if he acts quickly enough. But he doesn't act quickly. He kind of takes his time, and he comes to a place called Newmarket Heights, which will be famous in 2 years. And President Davis comes down and admires his position. General Lee rides down. General Holmes, what are you doing? Why aren't you attacking? General Lee, I'm outnumbered. Well, if he'd hurried, he might not have been, but he didn't. So he was outnumbered now. Up on Malvern Hill is most of Porter's 5th Corps, 30 pieces artillery. Warren's infantry brigade is across the road, and the Yankee ships are in the river about 2 miles away, and they can shell him. Lee says, okay, so he sends word back, and this is a key moment. He sends word back to Longstreet. Send Magruder down here to help. Magruder is the reserve, about 12,000 men. Magruder comes down, starts heading down to the river. It takes him a long time. Holmes attacks. It fails. They're getting hit by big shells up in the trees falling on them, shrapnel, so it's just a fiasco. Nothing's gained. By the time Magruder arrives, it's late, and they tell Magruder to go back. So he's going to spend all day marching. All right. Eugene comes down the road, Charles City Road, and he's heading for the intersection, and he runs into Yankees who are cutting trees down. How dare they do that? Cutting trees down. He sends his men out to cut the trees out of the way. Never sends anybody to stop them from cutting trees down. Sets up artillery and starts an artillery barrage that lasts all day. He contributes nothing. So right now you've lost UG's 10 and Holmes' 6. That's 16,000 men out of the battle. Haven't done anything. But you still have AP Hill, DH Hill, Jackson, DH Hill, and Richard Ewell. You ought to be in pretty good shape. So now is the worst moment of Stonewall Jackson's military career until he gets shot, I think. He comes to the river. White Oak Swamp. Looks a lot like the Chickahominy. And when he looks across, he sees Yankees across the way. Now, it bears right now to describe how the Yankees were laid out. McClellan is gone. He went to the river. He leaves no one in charge. I think Mark said it best, and maybe he wanted to avoid the action. Yeah. He's gone to the river. No one's in charge, and the Yankee troops are split. Units are all disheveled. You see up in the top, you've got units of the 2nd Corps and the 6th Corps together. You've got over here 6th Corps, 3rd Corps, 5th Corps, And McCall's men had fought at Beaver Dam Creek and at Gaines Mill and should be in reserve. And then down here, a little further, you see Hooker. There's a big swamp here that you can't really make out. It's a really important swamp. And Hooker's down here. He's 3rd Corps. And of course, Corps has most of the rest of the 5th Corps up on Malvern Hill about 2 miles away. No one is in charge. This should not fail. No one's in charge. And you had 71,000 men to attack this. You lost 16. Now Jackson is at the very top of your picture. And he comes and he sees the Yankees on the other side. And he tells his artillery chief, take some guns over there and drive them back, which he does. He rides down to the swamp with D.H. Hill, and he said, we can't get across here. I'll never get the men or the artillery across. So he tells a couple people to go look for other places. One of them is Wade Hampton. And they go look. One guy comes back and says, General, there's a place not too far left you might be able to get across. Wade Hampton comes back with gold. He says, there's a place a little bit more distant, but the swamp is about 15 feet wide. The bottom is sandy, and I could build a bridge for the artillery. And the Yankees are not paying attention. So Jackson tells him, go build a bridge. So he does. When he comes back, he tells Jackson, and Jackson does nothing with it. And Hampton writes later, he can't believe it, right? We're ready to go, he won't do anything. Jackson instead sits down to eat, falls asleep, and really does nothing the rest of the day, goes to bed kind of early. And everyone puzzles over this, they puzzle over for years. How can this be Jackson? Well, one reason could be his orders weren't completely clear, but they were probably clear enough. So was Jackson. But what it really seems to be, and Robert K. Craig, if you're familiar with them, I think really is and also Bud Robertson and Bobby Craig hold to this, and I think it's probably true, that Jackson's exhausted. Jackson fought the Valley Campaign. He rode to Richmond. He rode back. He came back. He's not sleeping. He stays up all night to pray. And I had an interesting conversation the other day with a guy who said, my family house is where Jackson stayed the night of Beaver Dam Creek. Well, the house was there. I don't know if it's true now. It might be. Okay? But he said, my family's, worked with family is that he wouldn't go to sleep. He stayed up and talked all night. I don't know if it's true. That's interesting. But Jackson's probably exhausted. He even writes his wife he's not feeling well. But this is an incredible opportunity to destroy McClellan. Incredible. 25,000 more men are out of the battle. That leaves Longstreet, A.P. Hill with 19,000 men to seize the road. Let me check on my time real quick. Good. Longstreet and A.P. Hill kind of build a reputation with Lee here today. All right, the only two people who follow orders, and they're both aggressive. Longstreet's going to launch an attack with his division and with one of A.P. Hill's corps, Lawrence O'Brien branch. And 4 brigades are supposed to attack across and seize that road. Has anybody ever been to Glendale? Yeah, well, if you've been back in Glendale, you know what a mess it is. And some of the areas were clear, some were heavily wooded, but it's rolling hills, there's swamps. It's difficult to see and difficult to hear in some places. I think that contributes here. James Kemper attacks. And when he does, he hits the Pennsylvania reserves and he drives them back. The Yankees send reinforcements. They drive Kemper back. Lawrence O'Brien Branch was supposed to go with him, but he was late because he got lost in the woods. He said he went to the sound of the guns. Okay? He attacks, and Pickett's brigade attacks. Pickett was wounded at Gaines Mill. They attack, and even more Yankee reinforcements come in. And some of those reinforcements are coming from over where Jackson was, because Jackson's not doing anything. They're sending reinforcements. All right? They drive Branch back. Next to Branch on the left is Micah Jenkins. Jenkins is attacking about this time. Interestingly enough, this aside, but we were talking earlier about primary sources and things, and Longstreet says that Jenkins attacked first, but Kemper said when he attacked, no one was to his left or his right. He could have seen that. So I don't think Jenkins was attacking. I really don't know. I wasn't there. Okay? But I think it makes sense that he never attacked on his own. Jenkins attacks, fights a really pitched battle, seizes the guns, Yankees counterattack, Confederates are gaining no advantage. To his left, Wilcox is attacking at the Sykes farm. Just two Sykes brothers, free blacks, live out there, and he's attacking there, attacking Randall's battery. You probably heard of Allison Randall if you've studied the Civil War. They seize the battery, they lose the battery. This thing goes on to seesaw. The day starts getting late. Darkness is coming, and all that's left to help leave is A.P. Hill. Remember, Magruder's not here. 12,000 more men. They're not here. A.P. Hill's men attack. They seize the guns and so forth. They never break the road. More Yankees come over because Eugene and Jackson aren't fighting, and they just push it back. Okay? So, at the end of the day, the Confederates hold the field. The Yankees retreat. But it's a terrible blow to Lee. Douglas Southall Freeman said it was probably his bitterest disappointment. He had only one opportunity for an envelopment, and this was it. He didn't have the people to carry it out. Jackson was the biggest surprise. So now, it's June 1st. Lee gets up. What am I going to do? The fellow's going to get away. I've got maybe one more chance. The Yankees are up on a place. Is this really working?
Lost the line, yeah.
The Yankees are up. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Back there? Okay, all right. My outside voice. Right, Craig? Okay, we're back. All right. The Yankees are on a place called Malvern Hill. And who's been to Malvern Hill? Almost everybody. Doesn't look like much of a hill, does it? Well, it's surprising. If you ever go there in the winter, if you go to either side of Malvern Hill, you'll find quite different terrain than you see here. There's gullies and valleys and a swamp. It's totally different. But this is the open area, and the Yankees are on top of the hill, and this is a perfect artillery position. Look at that. I mean, there's nothing but wide open space. Yankees have between 30 and 40 guns lined up across a 900-yard wide ridge. They have almost the entire army on this hill. The Fourth Corps, most of the Fourth Corps is down at the river, but everybody else is on this hill. And they're in a big U shape. And almost all the Army's artillery is on this hill. They got plenty to bring up, and they have heavy guns in the back that can reach it. Of course, Lee doesn't see all of that. He can see what's in front of him. So he tells Longstreet, can he find a way to make this work? And Longstreet goes out and says, you know, if we put guns on what's your left, and which on the other side of what you can't see where that tree on the right is, tree line on the right is, there's more open space over there. Okay? To the right, we could maybe fire guns and drive the Yankees off the hill. Lee goes, go ahead and do it. Well, the way the Confederate artillery is arranged makes it almost impossible. Confederate artillery is generally down to brigade levels, and it trails behind the infantry. So as the infantry is moving this direction, they've got to get out of the way when the guns go up. And of course, they can't all get up at once. So as they come up, they're getting just shellacked by the Yankee guns that are waiting for them. So Longstreet goes to Lee, this probably isn't going to work. They go riding off. But before they go, Lee sends Chilton with another order. And if the Yankees retreat, General Armistead, who is in the very front of the Confederate line, will attack with a yell, and everyone else will do the same. What kind of order is that? I mean, you're making a brigadier general determine the outcome of this battle that could decide the war. And you're counting on some guys that are already screaming to yell. They're out there chasing off sharpshooters, and they're yelling at them. It's insane. Lee and Longstreet go riding looking for another way to go. Magruder rides up. Magruder's just having a terrible campaign, as you can tell. He was supposed to be there a lot earlier, but he got lost due to a map. Lee told him to go on this certain road, and there's 2 roads on the map, and he went the wrong one. That's where the guides led him. Okay? So he finally gets here. He's exhausted. I think he's on medication. Anyway, so he hears that order. Not long after, Lee gets word that the Yankees are in fact pulling back. All they're doing is trading out guns. All those guns come up and replace the ones that are running out of ammunition. Lee hears that word and he goes attack. Word gets to Magruder. He attacks. He's not going to screw up again. Right? Let him attack. Okay? D.H. Hill hears that. They're attacking with a yell. I'm going to attack. 5,000 casualties later, the Yankees are still on the hill. General Lee rides up to Magruder. Am I doing something?
I think you might be turning it off on you.
Am I doing something?
Yeah, you hit the wrong button. Give it loudly.
Oh, so Lee comes up to Magruder and goes, General Magruder, why did you attack? Because of your orders twice repeated. Fair enough, right? Talk about a disaster. 5,000 men gained nothing. More communications, no good planning, poor communications. That night, the Yankee generals are on the hill. And McClellan wants to retreat to the river, and some of them, Porter and Harney, go, no, we should attack. We just hurt them badly. We should attack. I will tell you that I've had this conversation with Bobby Crick, who I esteem for. He doesn't think it would have worked. He was overwhelming. That would never work. Okay. All right. I'll believe you, Bob. They pull out, they go down to the river. They get to the new base under the protection of the fleet, and they're safe. So now, there's also another army in Virginia now under John Pope. The miscreant. I won't go too far into this. Lee's got to deal with him. And he's worried about McClellan maybe crossing the James River and doing what Grant would do 2 years later, driving to Petersburg and cutting the railroads. He decides to send Stonewall after Pope. A.P. Hill has a falling out with Longstreet, and he sends A.P. Hill with him. And the rest of Lee II Manassas probably Lee's greatest victory. But now Lee has got to decide what to do with his army, and Lincoln's got to decide what to do with his. I mean, they invested a full year worth of money and resources to build this magnificent army that did nothing. Comes to visit McClellan. He decides that McClellan's idea of a war just putting the states back together again is not going to work. It's going to get more brutal. He's going to free the slaves. The Emancipation Proclamation is born there. McClellan survives for a while, but eventually Lincoln will start cycling his troops off to support Pope. That's the second Manassas story, and Mark will tell you all about that some other time. Right? But Lee now has to do something with his army. He has some people that really failed. Usually he's going to be gone. I call him useless. He's gone. Holmes is going to be gone. Magruder had already had a transfer lined up to go to the Trans-Mississippi. He held off with his campaign. Lee lets him freely go. And D.H. Hill will be gone for a while in the end of the month because Lee gets tired of his complaining. Now, that leaves Longstreet and A.P. Hill in very good graces. Like I say, their stars really went up. A lot of brigade commanders did well, for example. What about Jackson? It was terrible. But he fought so well in the valley AP Hill's aggressive. Longstreet's marginally aggressive. Okay? He can be aggressive. DHL's aggressive, but he has an attitude problem. The Army starts to come together. Lee's learned a lot. His artillery is still outclassed, and it will be till after Antietam. The Confederate guns are generally smaller, with shorter range and smaller payloads. He's got to fix that. He's got to fix the quartermaster corps. He's got to work on his staff. As far as commanders go, and you, like you, I didn't mention you. He's starting to get his nucleus. He cannot have cores yet. Congress hasn't allowed it, so he creates two wings, Jackson and Longstreet. And that's going to be your future corps. So, the upshot of this whole thing is that ironically, Lee saved Richmond. And almost miraculously, he saved Richmond. Cost 20,000 men to do that. Should not be lost. But in saving Richmond, he prolonged the war, which he didn't want to do. And in saving Richmond, emancipation became a future done deal. 7 days is critically important. It's often overlooked. But so much happened there. The Army was developed, set the tone for the rest of the war. It's really important. I'm glad Mark took you on a tour. If you ever want to come back, let me know. Let Mark know or somebody. So with that, I'll see if you have any questions. Anybody have any questions? I have a microphone. Somebody's got a question. Yes.
The 20,000, how come they got away with losing?
Who else you